Welcome to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Philosophy 101. Today I want to talk about the different types of training we have, the different ways to express our practice. Some very different approaches that to the untrained eye are going to look the same, and they're absolutely not. I'd say that the first one, maybe the most important one, is a learning class or a learning training session. The second most important one, or the next one on the list, would be a testing class or a testing training session. The third one would be a trial. What do we mean by these three different things? Well, the vast majority of what you're going to do, the way you're going to get good at jiu-jitsu, the way you're going to actually enjoy it the most, is to spend most of your time learning. And this means that when you're training with your partners, it takes a very different appearance than when you're testing yourself or you're going through a trial. The idea would be if you're off going to take a college class or a high school class, and if every single day you showed up, you had to take a quiz. Every single day you had to take a test. It wouldn't be, when do you actually learn? When's your opportunity to learn the topic? When's, in the case of jiu-jitsu, when's your opportunity to actually learn technique? Now, some people would say in a given class that the technique portion of the class is the learning, that you drill through a technique. But that's just introducing the technique to you. You don't learn, you don't get the technique into your bones, you don't get to be able to do it well, you don't get to see how it works with the rest of your practice until you're doing it with rolling. But if the rolling is immediately a hard test of it, then you're still not in the situation where you're learning. You are testing. If we took a test every single day when we came to school, we would never get anywhere. There's a lot more to it though. If we think of it like, what is the relationship between ourselves and our training partner, ourselves and our teacher, when you, using the high school or college analogy again, when you see your teacher and they're teaching you, they're assuming that you don't already know the topic. They're trying to educate you more. They're trying to help you. They're not in a combative relationship with you. Their goal is to get you better at the thing. In a testing environment, when they're now testing, that's the end of the semester, or any other situation like that, or a quiz, suddenly the role changes entirely. Right now, the teacher is kind of intentionally in a combative role. They're now challenging you. They're assuming that you know the content and they're testing you on that, right? And it's a positive thing when it's done well. The idea is that it's like, all right, we've gotten you here. Now let's see if you actually know it. Under pressure, you see if you actually know it when you no longer have the teacher's help. So the teacher changes the role, the environment, their classmates, the teacher, everything changes when it goes from a learning environment to a testing environment. When you show up for class, if your attitude is always, I am in competition with my training partners, or my teacher's trying to catch me making mistakes, or I want to make sure my teacher never sees me making a mistake because I want my teacher to think great of me, then you're missing the point. The point most of the time is that you're learning. And if your teacher doesn't know your weaknesses, if your teacher doesn't know the mistakes you make, if you're doing a really good job, if you're effectively hiding it from your teacher, you're hurting both of you. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in that environment. Now, when does testing show up? Well, sometimes roles themselves will be testing. There's times where I'll train with the same training partner, and sometimes we'll do a learning role, working with each other, trying to find new ideas. And then another time it's like, all right, let's just go for it and see what happens. It's a different mentality type of training session. Is me seeing if I can make what it is I'm doing work under extreme resistance. That doesn't necessarily mean extreme physical resistance. It might mean extreme strategic resistance. My opponent is not letting me land these techniques. My opponent is not letting me move from here to there. That would be a testing thing. It would not be great if I'm working on something new, if I'm just developing something. This works when and only when we've already established something and now we want to test it, give it kind of a stress test. What's the third one? The trial. Trial is interesting. I don't mean it like a legal case, like you're trying to find out if you're guilty or not guilty. I mean trial like something that you know is going to be difficult. It's going to test you, but you're not really expecting you to fail. You want them to come out of it finding out something about themselves. So trials happen all the time. You could just have one hard class. You could be gassed too early. You could have had bad sleep the night before, and suddenly this class, this regular training session, is a trial. You, of course, competition, or some places like to have their graduation or promotion ceremonies be a bit of a trial, that it's difficult. They're not going to fail you. You're not going to be a blue belt for the rest of your life, but it's supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to come out of it going, whew, that was a challenge, but I was up to the challenge and I succeeded. That's the idea of a trial. Now, all three of these things can be done poorly or they can be done well. You can have a learning environment where they're just not doing a good job of getting the ideas that work for you into your mind. They're not finding the techniques that fit with what you're already doing work very well. You can have a terrible testing environment, right? You can have it be that your training partners are always just smashing you and they're like, let's test what you're doing, and smash, smash, smash. And it's like me taking a test right now in quantum physics, barely a single question right, and it will be by luck. It's not a very good test because it's not something that I'm ready to be tested in. And then trials they can certainly be too brutal. It can break your spirit instead of make you feel proud of yourself or feel stronger. There's all kinds of ways that a trial can be done wrong well, but they can also all be done really well. Aren't universal, right? Something that is easy for one person will be a trial for someone else, and something that's a trial for one person will be impossible for somebody else. It varies, and so a good teacher, a good organization is going to be able to adjust this for every single practitioner. And then I've seen fantastic trials. I've seen trials where people come out of it and it was one of the best experiences of their life, even though it was one of the more difficult ones. I've seen people be able to have a testing training session where they really figure out what's working and what's not, what needs work and what is kind of satisfactory right now. And I've seen learning environments that are fantastic, learning environments where in a single training session somebody has giant aha moments or some part of their practice moves forward in an incredible amount. And so that's the idea, that every training session is not the same. And in fact, certain ones that look the same could in fact be just entirely different from each other. So don't just walk into your training with a blank slate, like, oh, let's see what we get today. Some of it will be like thrust upon you, but have a different mentality when you're in a learning environment, when you're in a testing environment, when you're in a trial environment. Hopefully, that will get rid of a little of the confusion about, what are we doing? Like, why is this hard? Should this be hard? Why is this easy? Should this be easy?